this right here is the GM side skirts. Now, there's a lot of options for these. There's so many companies made different carbon fiber options for this car, but past experience, the GM stuff is the perfect fit-in stuff. So this is left and right. Let's go ahead and unwrap these. We'll show you these. We'll show you how they fit on. We might have to put the car on ramps to do this. We have a lift, but the lift arms are probably going to interfere with the spot where these carbon fiber parts are going to attach. Nice thing is we already installed the lift-in pucks, so that gives us a bit more clearance for when we do lift the car. That gives us a bit more room on this arm. The car is lowered, but it's not too extreme. It's lowered about an inch, so it shouldn't be difficult. So you can see how nice the weave is on these, and they are genuine carbon fiber. They're not fiberglass with carbon overlay, which a lot of companies will use. So there's one thing to note. This here is going to go in the car basically this way. Well, there is the double-sided tape here, then there is a hole that they give you a template to drill, which is right here. That hole is going to be about there. So if you're anything like me, you're not going to drill the car. So there is double-sided tape, which if you clean the car with alcohol, that tape is surprisingly strong. It's going to rivet on the bottom, which I'm okay, but I'm not okay with drilling a hole here. So past cars I've done side ground effects and such, S2000s, they have a side stripe that goes here, and there is a hole that they tell you to drill here. We don't drill that either. We use double-sided tape, and believe it or not, it's more than strong enough to support it. Also, Integra Type R, they used to have a side skirt, same thing. Never drilled the car, so that's what I'm going to do here. The car is dirty. We haven't done anything with it, so there's no ceramic coating or wax or anything. We'll clean the car, then use alcohol, because it's so much easier to pull 3M tape off and clean the car as opposed to fixing holes. Picks up this bolt right here. This is the only existing hardware it uses. It would have the hole drilled here like we talked about. We're not going to use that. We're going to use just the 3M tape. Everything else on the bottom rivets. So it runs the GM rivets into here, which I don't feel too bad about. If you do remove the carbon, obviously you can use the nice little Christmas tree plugs here. And I mean, it's like a carbon, so it's not going to rust. It's not like a metal car that when you drill it, you've got to put some kind of rust inhibitor on there. This is like a carbon. It's not going to have a problem. So that I don't feel bad about. Don't feel bad about drilling the bottom side of the car. I just can't bring myself to drill it in the side. Even if this was a 20-year-old car, I couldn't do that. So what we're going to do is, now we've got this bolt out, put the side skirt up where it needs to be, attach it with that bolt. This is obviously the tape on the side. This would be the hole we're not drilling. This has basically a sponge that sits up against the rocker that sits out. This is the other tape right here. Now, there is a few tips to doing this, is to remove this completely, put some soap and water on here and on the car. That way it'll slip into place. The soap and water will dry. Same with this right here. Take this off, a little bit of soap and water, put it into place. It'll sit and hold in place. we have our screw-in T15s. It actually separates here, so if you're storing it, it knocks it down to 3 pieces, which makes it a little smaller. But basically, you're just going to remove all of those. Get some more video of this outside in the sun so you can get an idea of how it fits and how it looks. But I mean, the fact that it bolts up exactly in the factory holes, this over here, this shape fits in that pocket perfect. And again, another reason I like to use the OEM parts. Now this car came with the high wing. You can buy this as an option. It is carbon flash, which is kind of like the black metallic. But what I wanted to do to kind of tie this into the carbon without going crazy carbon, because you really can get carried away and change every little piece to carbon. They make an end cap right here. I want to show you the ones that I got, but these basically unbolt here, and it gives it just the carbon on the side, but keeps the top of the car carbon flash. So we'll take those out, show you what they look like, and we'll compare the weave to this. I'm hoping that the weave matches pretty close. These came from Wild Hammer Motorsports. I think there's a whole bunch of different companies off of this, and they are a super nice piece. Now, carbon fiber, I've been dealing with this stuff for a long time, buying companies stuff and installing it from cheap stuff to expensive stuff, and they always seem to have issues with the aftermarket. Well, so far these look pretty nice. Even on the inside, they're actually finished. So I don't know if these are all carbon fiber or if they're fiberglass with a carbon overlay. I don't think that matters so much. They feel kind of heavy for what they are, so they might be fiberglass with an overlay, but they definitely look nice. So that's the carbon side by side. The carbon is going on a different angle, which isn't really an issue because they're far apart from each other. So end caps you're going to remove is going to be a T20 as an airplane flies over.
I think they're taped. I gave it a little tug when I had it loose. It didn't seem to move very easily, so.
Yeah, that feels like it's taped on there. So it's actually a little bit of glue right here. It came off with a little bit of tugging, but just in these 2 spots right there. So luckily you can't see this part because it pulls the finish off, but it does stick there pretty well. So the factory one is exactly the same as the aftermarket one. It's got the same shape, which is kind of what I wanted. I think the wing fits the car really well, especially with the ground effects. It kind of ties all that together. Now this has the recessed area right here, which is part of what locates it in the car. You see how defined this one is. This one has the cut too. I'll put it on the wing and see how well that fits. Actually, when you move it there, you can see that is pretty defined too, and that's part of the structure, is when it bolts on here, this ridge here fits tight on that wing, and it's not relying just on the bolts, and it shouldn't make it too flimsy. Might put a little bit of double-sided tape on there just as an extra, but I think those bolts will hold it just fine. So you see it's got the 2 threaded inserts here for those bolts to go to. So this, when you line this up on here, it does fit there pretty snug. So they fit really nice. Other side, same process. It comes off pretty much the same, just a little bit of glue on that one. But there you go. So there is a few companies that make these. I don't know if it's one manufacturer sells it to all of these guys. There's a whole bunch of Corvette suppliers that offer it, and it seems like they're all pretty much the same, but I can tell you these are definitely a nice piece. And obviously a super simple install that is reversible in the event you want to sell the car or go back to the factory pieces. So if you've ever washed a C8, you know this leads directly into the engine. It's not so much if you get it wet, it's when you spray soap on it. Soap goes all the way in the engine, and if the engine's warm, it water spots, especially if you guys have that cover that's painted. Last thing you want is water spots. So this is pretty crude, but it's just an easy, quick solution. If anybody knows a better way to cover these holes up, let me know. Post it in the comments. Somebody else is going to be watching this. I'm sure will appreciate it. What I use is the blue Scotch tape. It's even called Scotch Blue. Reason I like this is it doesn't leave any residue if you don't leave it on too long. They tell you can leave it on for 3 days, but if you get it wet, that's a whole different story. What I would do, put it on there, wash the car, dry it, remove it. I've done that plenty of times on different applications. It doesn't leave any residue. Don't leave it on overnight after it gets wet. It will leave residue, it will stick, it makes a mess. So there you go, 4 strips, it's 2-inch wide tape I used. Now this glass is still open back here. So wash it this direction, you should be okay. And then of course we use a blower to blow off excess water. Same thing on a couple of cars in the past. I know my NSX used to do it really bad. It had a gap under the glass all the way around and it would get the engine wet. Again, it's designed to alleviate the heat in the engine bay. Obviously the hot air rises, these vents down here and here, keeps that engine bay actually pretty cool.
Over the air, feel like I'm floating through the air. The pain I felt is paid for, all is said and done.
Well, it's not 100% dry, but it does pretty well. A little bit of water around here just from where the back window comes down and then drips, but at least it's not all over this cover here. And again, this is just a black cover. The valve covers do have that red finish. You can get this to match. This one didn't come with it, but you can either paint it yourself or actually order these covers. There's some companies now offering to color match these. But again, it's not the perfect solution by taping up that grille, but it does help. So I can confirm the fitment is absolutely perfect. There was no problems anywhere. Everything lined up, and the fact that it was exactly the same left and right. Like I mentioned earlier, carbon fiber can be a little off. In fact, most of the aftermarket stuff we have dealt with, there is usually issues. It has like a warped feel to it where it doesn't sit perfectly against the body, or holes don't line up, or even if it has a contour. This stuff is absolutely perfect, especially on that lower rocker, which I was more concerned with because it's the part you can see walking up to the car, and it fit absolutely perfect. I mean, it wasn't even like a slight gap. It fit tight. The lip fits exactly around the bumper. And again, it's a little bit more money than some of the aftermarket stuff. I think the stuff retails for about $4,800 for the 3 pieces, and the end caps, I believe, were $350 for the pair. So it's definitely not cheap, but it is something that looks like it belongs on the car. It really gives it that Z06 look. Obviously, everybody wants a Z06, but the fact that you can't get them, this really does make the C8 look a whole lot better.
I am restricted, fixed upon the web. I need to kick the habit that my mind is breathing in. Break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it